So this is CJ Baker, and after a bit of a hiatus, this is the first episode of season 2 of the companion podcast to the website, Ongoing History of Protest Songs.com. So for this episode of the Ongoing History of Protest Music, my special guest is a rapper, podcast host, and journalist who goes by the name Time. He has recently released a new concept album, Nighthawks At McCoys, which is a collaboration with folk singer Maudlin Magpie and the German-based producer A Thousands Vows. So I'd like to thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to kick off season 2. That's awesome.
So you're my very first guest since 2021 started. So that's exciting. So I'll be looking forward to our conversation. Of course, we're doing this through Zoom, so we are social distancing. So we mentioned that you have a new album out, Nighthawks at McCoy. It's a concept album. So how would you describe the concept to our listeners?
So for people who haven't been to Denver, McCoy's is this iconic diner in North Denver, and it's just a diner that we always went to. It's 24/7, and we always thought of this diner as kind of like a portal or a meetup place, because I don't know if you've heard my album Naked Dinner, but really Naked Dinner was all pretty much written and inspired from McCoy's as well.
Okay.
So we kind of took this album as being like imagining this diner to be a portal where you get more clarity on life and look at society more clearly, kind of like that movie They Live, but the diner's the glasses that help you see ideology and capitalism and mortality and depression and all of these different concepts come together.
Yeah, cool, because it's an excellent way of exploring those themes.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the idea that it's a portal, because sometimes you wonder, like, outsiders looking in at what's going on right now. Sometimes it's like, okay, what would they be thinking? Like, you think of people, like, even like if aliens were alive and they're viewing us from another planet, or must they be thinking of all the craziness going on?
Yeah.
So kind of having that portal where you get that fresh perspective of what's going on.
Yeah, I like that metaphor of just breaking it open and kind of taking a deep dive on these things and giving ourselves permission through this album to dig deeper. And really we dug into a lot of poetic elements and just broke open concepts.
I even know, like, the first single on the album is Dream, which stands for like Banks Rule Everything Around Me. So is it safe to say that that's a play on Wu-Tang's Clan Scream?
Yeah, and and the last 2 lines of each verse is kind of like a homage to Wu-Tang. And yeah, a big fan of Jizza and RZA, of course. And that song Bream, it was actually really inspired from Tequin. Have you ever read them before? They're a collective out of I believe it's France.
Okay.
The Tarnac autonomous region, and I was reading their book. It was based off of I think it was called Bloom from Ulysses. Yeah, and it kind of inspired a lot of the lyrics from Bream and brought that whole kind of concept together.
Yeah, it's definitely a powerful expose on the evils of big banks and capitalism. And
yeah, thank you. And yeah, it had some just kind of looking at society and civilization as a whole, and is it really moral, or will it actually work, and an alienation of working. One of the lines in there is it's snowing chalk, the world's a crime scene. And just really thinking about hyper-capitalist society and the destruction it brings and it is bringing.
Definitely a powerful lyric there. Another song on the album, which seems like it's probably autobiographical, is I know you had the song Annie's Moth. And one of the lyrics there mentioned we started this album 6 years ago, the night before I almost died. So there, in that lyric, if that is autobiographical, which I'm assuming it is, there's a lot to unpack there. Like, is the fact that the album's 6 years in the making, but even the fact the night before I almost died, is that something you feel comfortable talking about? Or
Yeah. Thanks for asking that, Chris. I've almost died many times. I don't know if you know, but I have 1.5 lungs. And when I was 18 and when I released literature, my lungs started collapsing randomly, and they've collapsed like 4 times, and they had to remove the top portions of my lungs. And now I'm good. I've been good from that. But the lyrics from Annie's Moth, it's funny if you actually listen to "I've Always Loved the Monsters," that track.
okay.
I recorded those 2 verses, which actually talk a lot about death. I recorded those verses that night, and then after I got done recording those verses, me and my partner, we were stopped on Santa Fe in Denver, and a car rear-ended us going 50 miles per hour, and that was right when we just had laid out this first track, and obviously that was a horrible accident, and got a big time concussion, and so that's what I'm talking about when the night before I almost died. And Jason from Maudlin Magpie, he was the one who he talked to me into keeping that take from I've Always Loved the Monsters, because he's like, you were talking about how one day your heart could be beating, and the next it might not be pumping, and it happened that night almost. I had internal bleeding, had to go to the hospital, and so yeah, that's kind of the context. We as you say, autobiographically folded that into the album.
I think it makes a powerful track when obviously not every artist is expected to include those personal details, but it can add weight to the message.
Yeah, and that whole song, Annie's Moth, is based off of Annie Dillard,
Okay.
the author, and she has this essay talking about a moth that's kind of it goes and lands in the candle where she's writing, and then the moth is kind of enveloped in the flame and then becomes part of the wax.
Yeah.
So that's that whole metaphor we're working with, and kind of talking about mortality. I almost felt like I became part of the candle wax, when we're thinking about dying and those different topics.
And even though obviously the album would have recorded most of the tracks before the pandemic hit, but I think those themes carry extra weight when you look at what happened there too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, with all the loss of life we've had last year and this year, and yeah, definitely bigger existential topics to think about.
Yeah, so that adds extra weight there. Then you also mentioned the album being 6 years in the making. Was that partly because, like, after these things happen, you just took a bit of a hiatus, or?
Well, this album it's just a strange album that we put together because Jason from Maudlin Magpie, he lives in Denver, and A Thousand Vows lives in Germany.
Yeah.
So we were just collaborating kind of, and A Thousand Vows kind of has a live band that works with him sometimes as well. So we were just all working on different projects. Like in this meantime, I had released Things I Learned While Dying in Denver with awareness of these songs kill fascists. And I was working on all those in the meantime. And then we were also touring. So yeah, really just working and getting the stems from Germany. That really is what took the longest time. And yeah, just getting it all compiled. And then we kind of just knocked it out all this year.
I guess that's the thing. Like, obviously, the pandemic, I guess you still have the distance to deal with. And maybe more time on your hands because you're not touring. And
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have more time with that. And yeah, I could just sit down and finally knock out this project.
Yeah. So you mentioned the collaboration process there. So you worked with Maudlin Magpie and A Thousand Vows. So what was that experience like working with them?
It was really cool because I started working with A Thousand Vows on the album Nostalgia,
Okay.
and he did that track. This is not an exit. So if you look at the last track on this album, it's called "This Is Still Not an Exit" on Nighthawks at McCoys, and Jason was actually he did the chorus on "This Is Not an Exit." So that was kind of our first collaboration that we all did, and I've always liked Jason from Maudlin Magpie. His lyrics are like super deep and poetic, and we've both lived in North Denver for a while. So yeah, we just kind of just started collaborating because we worked together. We used to work at this library together.
Okay.
So we were always just kind of working on tracks while we were at work, and that's kind of how it sparked from there. Just kind of taking time on the clock to work on art.
Awesome. Yeah, because I wasn't familiar with Maudlin Magpie ahead of time. And doing the research, it looks like there's only the one album, Two Maple Keys, which was released in 2012. But I did really like the vibe he added. It kind of reminded me of Bright Eyes a bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think Jason has a kind of Connor Oberst type vibe to him. Especially on that track 03. Kind of has that feel to it.
Yeah, it kind of lent itself well with the content of the album and the verses as well. So I thought that was effective.
Sweet, thank you.
So of course, you mentioned this was not the first album you've released. You released a number of albums, both as a solo artist and part of the hip hop duo Common. So was socially conscious music something you've always drawn to? Making music?
Yeah, definitely. That was all the music that I really grew up on, which was, Mos Def, now Yasin Bey, big influences with me. And really it's what I credit is conscious music or just music that really has a message. That was the one that really educated me. And I even credit it with saving my life and keeping me out of the Iraq war and stuff like that. So that's why I love that type of music.
Okay, so good. The music can have a powerful effect there.
Definitely.
Maybe because you always made political music, maybe it hasn't been an issue, but I know a lot of guests I talk to, at times they do experience backlash from speaking up. Is that something you ever had to deal with?
Do you mean like overt backlash from like entities, or do you mean like just not having like a musical pull, like a pop pull or something like that, or do you mean kind of both areas?
I could be both areas.
Yeah. A funny thing that this rapper once told me was if you ever do political music, you'll cut your fan base in half. And I always joked around and said, like, you can't cut my dad in half. And I kind of had I've worked with Common in the past, and we had this conversation before. And I don't know, it's something that it's really just the type of music that comes out of me, and I feel it's important, and especially with being a white artist in hip hop music, that from a settler type background, that I have a duty to fight white supremacy. And that's one of my missions with doing my music, is to expose white supremacy and call it out, and essentially just try to be part of that fight to get rid of it. And if you're a white rapper just benefiting off of hip hop, I compare that to being like an Elvis with a SoundCloud or Elvis on Bandcamp. And if you're appropriating and not fighting those power structures, then you're contributing to benefiting from white supremacy.
And I think it's good that you're acknowledging that and acknowledging the influences. And I know cultural appropriation can be something that be a real issue within hip hop.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess music in general there. So you mentioned Common. So what was the experience of working with him?
So we're working with Awareness first met Common's father, who's Lonnie Pops Lynn, and he played for the Nuggets in Denver, or the ABA for the Rockets. And we met Lonnie, and you know how Lonnie, his dad, does a rap or a poem at the end of every album?
Yeah.
So when I met him at 7-Eleven, he was getting coffee, and I started quoting all of Lonnie's lyrics from like Water for Chocolate, like, are you mankind or kind of a man? And then Lonnie was impressed. He was like, hey, why don't you come over, check out my place, and I'll show you some of Common's memorabilia. And then we just really became friends from there. And Lonnie was like he was a mentor to me, like a grandfather type figure that I never really had on my mom's side, and taught me about Dr. Sebi and the benefits of nutrition and veganism. And then we got to work on The Dreamer, the Believer. And that was awesome. We actually recorded Lonnie's poem for that in my apartment in North Denver, actually not too far from McCoys. And then we got to work on Black America again, and that was right before Lonnie passed. So rest in peace to Lonnie. And yeah, we gotta hang out, meet with Common multiple times, and Common is the inspirational person, and yeah, a great influence for sure as well, like his song about Asada.
Yeah, awesome. It's a good experience there. So we spent most of the time so far talking about your music, but I know you're also heavily involved in journalism as well. Like I know you've written for Truth Out, you've published articles with Noam Chomsky. So what's involved with your journalistic work?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So it really kicked off during Occupy, the Occupy Wall Street movement, and I don't know if you've ever had Soul on your show.
I haven't.
But
you might be
Soul,
another one to reach out to.
Yeah, definitely that would be cool. So Soul was a big inspiration to me. He inspired me a lot, and then Soul was actually living out in Denver during Occupy, and is a really good friend of mine. And I was writing for some local newspaper out in Denver, and we were just seeing what was going on with Occupy Wall Street, with the police repression, the police violence, how they were kettling people. This was going all over the U.S. and was just covering that more with people, and wrote in Popular Resistance, and was interviewing people. We were looking at surveillance and people who were being targeted by the police when we're looking at class issues, white supremacy, colonialism, all these different issues. And that's really what it first led me to Chomsky. Because I had just sent him email after I had been threatened to be sued for an article, and all the legal stuff was kind of slap suits and they weren't real. And Soul told me, hey, why don't you just reach out to a bunch of people, reach out to Chomsky even. So I sent Chomsky an email, and I wasn't aware that he replies to emails. I don't know if you've ever sent him one, but Chomsky will reply. He's like a machine on emails. So he wrote me.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, so Chomsky at MIT.edu, hit him up. And he wrote me back that same night, and he's like, hey, that's awesome work you're doing out there. I liked your article. And he was kind of asking me what other stuff we're doing in Denver, or what's going on with Occupy, and I told him I was just a young journalist, and he invited me out to Cambridge to do an interview with him and to talk about Occupy, and then that got put into his book, the second edition of Occupy, and I got to help with some research and footnotes on that, and that really sparked our friendship from there. And then he was on my podcast eventually after that, and really he would just ask for like when Jefferson County's curriculum was being discussed in Denver, he had emailed and asked about that and see what was going on. So just kind of kept a loose friendship with him on that, and then I started writing for Truth Out from there, and was covering police violence and police murders in Denver, talking about climate change, and had written for Counterpunch and some other things as well.
Sounds like you mentioned like some of it is a lot of on the ground work too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that could be something that can be an experience.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot going on in Denver with police violence. It's still going on. I don't know if you've heard about Elijah Mclean.
I have.
Yeah, so that was one article I was writing last year for Truth Out, and was really just going through the whole litany of police violence, like the killing of Paul Castaway, Ryan Ronquillo, so many people to name, like Alonzo Ashley, Jesse Hernandez, and Dion Damon, who I wrote about on Truth Out.
I could ask before about backlash with your music, but it almost sounds like with the type of journalist work you do, there could be potential backlash there too.
Yeah, like it's hard to say, you know, with protest movements, there's always a lot of paranoia that can come up. So you know, during Occupy, we were always paranoid of surveillance and backlash and things like that, and being doxxed and stuff like that. But we try to have good, you know, awareness and security culture, and to really just look out for each other.
So it almost seems like there's a correlation between your work as a journalist and your work as a musician. That'd be safe to say.
Yeah, definitely. So I try to put in kind of journalistic things into my music, because I've always felt that music is a good way to deliver message and deliver information. There was an unreleased song I did about the Flint water issue, and that was pretty much an article that I just turned into a song, because I had just noticed. I think I was reading some stuff about Joe Hill at that time, and Joe Hill said that a song will be remembered by the heart, to where a pamphlet will be read once and thrown away. So that's what really inspired me to do, kind of put more information into my music to get that message out.
Because a lot of the songs I listen to by you definitely they work from like almost a journalistic feel. I think that's an important point, because even someone like myself, I try to keep up with the news and read articles, and sometimes it's tough to process it, where a song can make things more digestible. You can also go back and re-listen to it, and
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like some of the ways that I dug deeper into history wasn't from my high school. It was from listening to Dead Prez and hearing them talk about Nat Turner. And then that's what made me dig into learning more about history and resistance to slavery and all these other important topics.
music's definitely a powerful tool there. So I think you already mentioned a few of your influences throughout the course of the interview. Who are some of your other musical influences?
Yeah, there's so many musical influences. Like I said, the main musical influences I had when I was younger was Black Star. I was Yasin Bey and Talib Kweli. I was always listening to a lot of ruckus records, like Common, Pharoah Monch. I'm a big Pharoah Monch fan. Raz Kaz. I really love that song, Nature of the Threat, growing up. Gainstar, big fan of Guru. And we actually got to play with Guru and Jazzmatazz before he passed, which was just an amazing honor. Psalm 1 has always been a big influence to me. I love her music.
Yeah, I'm into a lot of stuff I've heard her too.
Yeah, and
someone else has tried to. I think I have sent her a message. She just hasn't responded yet.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that would be great if you had Psalm 1. She was on These Songs Kill Fascists, and I was able to, I just did her music video for Anxious, Imperfect, and Nervous. I don't know if you've seen that video
Yeah, I
yet.
featured that on the website.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do
My
that music
monthly
video
summary
for
there.
her. Yeah, your site is awesome. I always catch up on good new music that I miss. I also, like Nighthawks at McCoys is a riff on Tom Waits.
Yeah.
So a fan of him, a big jazz fan. I love John Coltrane and
Okay,
McCoy
cool.
Tyner, Archie Shepp. Yeah, so many artists. Big into psychedelic music too. Always liked Brian Jonestown Massacre or the Black Angels. There's so many. Jocko, Weather Report. I'm a big music fan.
It's good to have eclectic influences.
Definitely.
I always like asking that question because quite often you're going to get influences. Some of the influences might seem obvious, but others are going to be ones that you wouldn't guess. They all play an important role. I don't think you mentioned him, but when I was thinking of the title of your album, These Songs Kill Fastest, that seems to be a definite reference to Woody Guthrie.
Yeah, that was kind of a riff on Woody Guthrie as well. And I really liked Woody Guthrie and how he stood against fascism.
Yeah.
I wish I'm not a big fan of the song "This Land Is Our Land," just based off of like kind of the settler tone of that song. I know it has socialist influences, but when we're talking about stolen land and the land back movement, it's definitely something I like people to talk about more.
That's a good way of looking at it, because I always look at that song as being kind of like a open border anthem, but there could be issues with that if you the colonialism aspect to it.
Yeah, definitely. That's some things we were discussing. I was in a theater troupe called Romero Theater Troupe, named after Oscar Romero.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Woody Guthrie and that, and talking about how so-called Denver is a Cheyenne, Arapaho land, and just trying to acknowledge that and figure out ways on how we could start discussions or whatever on colonialism and giving that land back.
Yeah. Because even Woody Guthrie wrote the song in response to like America the Beautiful. So maybe more people will have to kind of write a response to that song.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, art always invites, critique and to dig deeper on these concepts.
Yeah. I think Woody Guthrie is a good example of someone who I almost view as like a musical journalist as well.
Yeah, definitely. His songs like The Valley of Jarama.
Yeah.
And the Spanish. I learned a lot about the Spanish Civil War from Woody Guthrie songs.
I love like the Dust Bowl Ballads album and.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. So I definitely enjoyed our discussion. I know you're involved in a lot of different projects because I know you have like a podcast and involved in a bunch of other things. So is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to add or plug or?
My podcast is called the Time Talks podcast, and it's part of the Channel Zero Network, which is kind of a autonomous, anarchist-based podcast network. And Soul's podcast is part of that as well, and it's a great group, and definitely going to share your podcast with them, and just a good source of information, and they're always doing awesome work. So yeah, just would like to highlight them.
Yeah, so that'd be the Channel Zero Network they can find that.
Yeah.
And any websites we can check you out on or social networks?
Yeah, my Twitter is Time Raps, and my Bandcamp is thisistime.bandcamp.com. And you can get all of our albums up there. And if anyone's low on funds and fans of your podcast, they can hit me up, and I have download codes. So happy to spread the music.
Okay, awesome. So of course you just had the new album out, which I know is already out on Bandcamp. I think by the time the podcast we release, it'll probably be out on most of the channels you're going to be releasing it on.
Yeah, it'll be on all those penny pusher websites by then, where you get like 0.001 of a play on those sites. So yeah, it'll be out on those soon.
I know that's talked to a number of different artists about that. It's definitely a source of frustration.
Yeah, definitely. But
I know there
I
are a
love
few that
Bandcamp.
yeah, but I know there are a few that are involved in campaigns of trying to get like a penny a play. And has that been anything you've been trying to get involved with? Or
No, I haven't really been a part of like petitioning, Spotify or Apple Music. That's cool that people are doing that. Really, a lot of the artists I work with, we just really like Bandcamp and support what they do, especially how they've been waiving fees.
yeah, I guess first
And
Friday of the month. Or
yeah, so yeah, we really just been pushing people to Bandcamp and supporting them because we actually are able to get, some funding for our music through there, and they're a great platform.
awesome. So check out your new album on Bandcamp. Of course, you just released a new album, but is there any other musical projects you're working on? Or
Yeah, the new Calm album is
okay,
almost
awesome.
done, and we've been working on some new tracks with Nico is, and Micah Nine is on that project as well. So that'll probably be out later this year, hopefully.
So something to look forward to. So any
Definitely.
other final words you'd like to say? Or
No, I just want to thank you for having me on your podcast, and I love what you do, and it's important that you highlight protest music and have a central place for it. So thanks for the work that you do.
yeah, thanks again. I enjoyed our discussion. And once again, check out Time's new album at Bandcamp and check out his other releases as well.